Lads, the big talking point post-match was Brendan Rodgers revealing that he was quote-unquote as angry as he'd ever been in all his time in management at half-time at McDiarmid Park. And there's a couple of ways to look at that. Somebody queried it on Twitter. Is it not a big concern that your manager needs to come out and actually have that rant at players? Yes, it can be a concern, but it's also the life of a manager. Alex Ferguson, you've mentioned, made a living out of doing stuff like that. Jose Mourinho and various other managers. Your job is to motivate your players. Well, A, identify where there's a problem, and B, motivate accordingly. So I'm all for Brendan Rodgers going off on one at times. You can't do it too many times across a season. It loses its kind of weight. But if he has to do it now and then, Miff, then at least he's done it and got a response from it. The big danger is you do it and the players still go out in the same shape in the second half. It was a complete turnaround at half time.
Yeah, it was, and I dare say they haven't seen him too angry, to be honest. I would think that would contain its shock value, and I think if you want to see the desired effect that it had, you only need to see the reaction of Callum McGregor when he scores. I think that's the biggest. He was clearly angry as well. Now, whether that's at the rollicking he's received for the manager or whether he himself was backing the manager up on that remains to be seen, but he's took it upon himself. I think there's starting to be a body of evidence now around justifying a start. I'm not saying dropping Kyogo. I'm thinking maybe fitting Kyogo in the 10. And again, I think the one thing you get with is that industry. You know, he comes on, and one thing you can't level at him is a lack of effort. He's always looking to kind of probe and run the defenders. So again, you look at the players that have come on, how hard they've worked. It's quite damning on the players that have exited. Turnbull was on the periphery of the game. I think Rodgers likes him because he can score a goal. I think it's a bit alien to him to be running in behind. You can see he almost looks uncomfortable running in behind the defence in supporting the attack. He wants to play in front of him to dictate it, but with McGregor and O'Reilly playing where they play, it's a bit square peg round hole for me with Turnbull playing in the 10. I think he should be playing deeper, but he's not going to play before O'Reilly or McGregor just now, even though you might argue maybe he should, because the form of both those guys in more recent games hasn't been great. I take the point that O'Reilly's been fantastic for a good portion of the season, but I think we're just too reliant on too many players, we're too reliant on a small number of players, and if they don't play well, it really, really affects the team. McGregor, O'Reilly, Kyogo, and I think past few games Palmer's been a wee bit off it compared to some of the flashes that he's shown. That then is a real stifling of creativity in the team. If you then add to that a lack of hard work across the pitch and winning the ball back, that spells massive, massive trouble. So what I will say is, as horrid as the first half was, fair play to the team for digging it out second half.
100%. James, you'll have seen, I don't know if you bother jumping on Twitter at half time and the likes. It's always a fun place to be.
Try not to.
And a lot of the chat, which is nonsense really, I miss Ange Ball. Bring back Ange Ball.
This guy.
The arrogance of anyone thinking you can come in and change your treble winning side. Whoever replaced Ange was never going to be Ange, right? It was going to be Brendan Rodgers or another. So you can't just come in and say, we'll just do what the last guy done. That's not how football works. That's not how management works. Everyone's got their own unique style that they believe in and their own methodology. If I can feel you waiting to get in, but just give us a second. So Brendan Rodgers has got his own style, but everyone's kind of slating at half time and all that kind of stuff. Now, I very generally I will defend Brendan Rodgers because I think he's a very talented coach, so you can counter this in a minute, Miff, if you like. But you need to look at the fact that he's working with a very different squad, very different 11 specifically to what Ange had to work with last season. Now not available to Brendan Rodgers is Jota's 15 goals and 14 assists from last season, Abada 13 goals and 14 assists, Hatate 10 goals 11 assists, Aaron Moy 7 goals and 12 assists, and Karl Starfelt undefeated domestically, partnering Carter Vickers at the back. You could argue that going the other way in a positive sense is Louis Palmer, who's come in and had a bit of an impact, which is great. But Miff, you can't deny the fact that you're only as good as the players you've got to work with. And Brendan Rodgers currently doesn't have as strong 11 as Ange Postecoglou. That's just bottom line. What do you say to that? Yeah, it's true. But that again, that goes back to the recruitment. It feels like we just go in circles around that. I take that point. It's on the club to replace those players when we know that they're leaving. You know, the decision to sell Starfelt looks all the more baffling by the week as we continue with Scales at centre half. And again, he's played well, but you know, we've signed two guys that are struggling to get anywhere near the team. It's just utterly bizarre, and that's why
I'm saying things just aren't making a whole lot of sense. January's going to be so intriguing is to see what we do. We must at least be able to empty about 5 or 6 guys out on loan, if nothing else.
Yeah.
As an absolute bare minimum, because there must be loads of guys talking about.
Adeguchi looks like he's been nominated for J League Player of the Year.
He's back. He's coming back end of January. That's his term.
Their season runs the calendar year. I think the writing's on the wall for Adeguchi. You never know, but to Mav's point, there's so many guys that we just need to move out. This 32-man squad we keep going on about.
I think the good thing about that with Adeguchi is it means you'll probably recoup some of the money that you've spent. So,
James, I'm just going to ask: are you concerned with the style of play, the slower approach, the fact that we mentioned that Ange loved to get off to a flyer and score early? We often scored in the first 15 minutes under Ange Postecoglou. This is a different approach. This is a more patient approach. 45 minutes worth of patience on Sunday, which isn't great. Are you concerned in general about how we're approaching it, or is it just a result of the players at Brendan Rodgers' disposal?
It's a bit of both. I'm concerned because at the end of the day, if you're going to be a Celtic manager, you need to be in the business of entertainment. That's the way it's always been. My biggest issue with it is that he's training the players up to play a certain way that does bolster you in Europe. With a bit of improved personnel, we're probably getting into Europe at least with the way that Rodgers plays in Europe. We were in all the games until the latter stages, all that stuff, apart from Madrid. The issue is then coming back to Scotland with that same formation and tactics that does you well away in Europe, but you're then doing it away in Perth. That's not necessary. The players have to be able to switch to a more, if you want, Ange style, where it's a lot more attacking in Scotland, because just horseshoeing it around. Horseshoeing it around it kills your buzz like you wouldn't believe, so that it can be entertaining, but the players have really got to play the most entertaining version of that horseshoe malarkey.
Yeah. Just to explain horseshoeing around for anyone that's not sure, I don't know if it's an official footballing term, but basically you got the left hand side and there's no options there. You're stifled defensively, so you need to come back and recycle through your midfield and up the right hand side, and before you know it, you're creating this constant U-shape without any great penetration, whereas with Ange it's just all guns blazing through the middle, down the wings, whatever the options are,
which gets you humped in Europe, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other side of Ange's style of play.
Some of the home games this season have been, away performances have generally been much better than home performances this season, I would say, as in for entertainment value when you were watching. I'd say the first half against St Johnstone was really quite, it was the exception. But it was so bad that I think it's got a lot of the fans backs up, because you're just like, that's far, far below the standard you expect to see from Celtic.
You can't really blame the manager on that, because he's had to go in and tear them to shreds at half time. So it's not like they're playing that way by following his instructions. They're not following his instructions.
And even at that, the players won't turn up and deliberately play badly either. But it's just, as a collective, it's just so poor. And what I will say is Rodgers' style's very different, more possession based. That's fine, but the players, we seem to be playing very, very safe. Actually, where I thought first 10 minutes we looked like we were trying to get in behind a wee bit more often and a bit quicker, and I was thinking, alright, well, great, but then we were just failing to go and win the ball back, and you're going, right, well, if we're going to give it away so cheaply and then not win it back, we'll go back to the safe possession-based sort of format. It was just a wee bit over the place. But then, if you're being absolutely honest about it, if you take a step back, the players are human. They've just been put out in Europe. Another away performance where effort put in has been very high, but quality and output of result has been poor. And the players themselves are probably a bit like, here we go again, another 12 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday away up to Perth after it's been snowing all weekend and whatever. They're only human, but it didn't make me any less angry yesterday.
Well, that's the thing. So everyone was angry at half time, and everyone, enjoyed getting frustrated and fed up online and slating Rodgers, and that's fine. That's all very valid.
I did not enjoy being frustrated.
Okay, but everyone allowed themselves to become frustrated.
Yes.
But equally, James, there's then a very impressive second 45. So if you come out angry at the first half, should you not be coming out full of praise at the second half?
Yeah, it's a bit of a kind of a marital situation. You say, I don't want you to apologise. I want you to not do the bad thing in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the second half performance is
You speaking to Mrs. Smith?
second half performance was only necessary because of how bad the first half performance was. Maybe just be decent from the start. We don't need to,
Just put the dishes away in the first place.
Put the dishes
What
away.
happens?
Aye.
Easy, lads, easy.
Get the bins out.
I hear you.